Posthuman or posthuman is a concept originating in the fields of science fiction, futurology, contemporary art, and philosophy that literally means a person or entity that exists in a state beyond being human. The concept addresses questions of ethics and justice, language and trans-species communication, social systems, and the intellectual aspirations of interdisciplinarity. Posthumanism is not to be confused with transhumanism, and narrow definitions of the posthuman is the hoped-for transcendence of materiality. Posthumanism. In critical theory, the posthuman is a speculative being that represents or seeks to reconceive the human. It is the object of posthumanist criticism, which critically questions Renaissance humanism, a branch of humanist philosophy which claims that human nature is a universal state from which the human being emerges. Human nature is autonomous, rational, capable of free will, and unified in itself as the apex of existence. Thus, the posthuman position recognizes imperfectibility and disunity within him or herself, and understands the world through heterogeneous perspectives while seeking to maintain intellectual rigor and a dedication to objective observations. Key to this posthuman practice is the ability to fluidly change perspectives and manifest oneself through different identities. The posthuman, for critical theorists of the subject, has an emergent ontology rather than a stable one. In other words, the posthuman is not a singular, defined individual, but rather one who can become, or embody different identities and understand the world from multiple, heterogeneous perspectives. Critical discourses surrounding posthumanism are not homogeneous, but in fact present a series of often contradictory ideas, and the term itself is contested, with one of the foremost authors associated with posthumanism, Manuel de Landa, decrying the term as very silly. Covering the ideas of, for example, Robert Pepperell's The Posthuman Condition, and Hale's How We Became Posthuman under a single term is distinctly problematic due to these contradictions. The posthuman is roughly synonymous with the cyborg of A Cyborg Manifesto by Donna Haraway. Haraway's conception of the cyborg is an ironic take on traditional conceptions of the cyborg that inverts the traditional trope of the cyborg whose presence questions the salient line between humans and robots. Haraway's cyborg is in many ways the beta version of the posthuman, as her cyborg theory prompted the issue to be taken up in critical theory. Following Haraway, Hales, whose work grounds much of the critical posthuman discourse, asserts that liberal humanism, which separates the mind from the body and thus portrays the body as a shell, or vehicle for the mind, becomes increasingly complicated in the late 20th and 21st centuries because information technology put the human body in question. Hales maintains that we must be conscious of information technological advancements while understanding information as disembodied, that is, something which cannot fundamentally replace the human body but can only be incorporated into it and human life practices. Transhumanism. Definition according to transhumanist thinkers, a posthuman is a hypothetical future being, whose basic capacities so radically exceed those of present humans as to be no longer unambiguously human by our current standards. Methods. Posthumans could be completely synthetic artificial intelligences, or a symbiosis of human and artificial intelligence, or uploaded consciousnesses, or the result of making many smaller but cumulatively profound technological augmentations to a biological human, that is a cyborg. Some examples of the latter are redesigning the human organism using advanced nanotechnology or radical enhancement using some combination of technologies such as genetic engineering, psychopharmacology, life extension therapies, neural interfaces, advanced information management tools, memory-enhancing drugs, wearable or implanted computers, and cognitive techniques. Posthuman future as used in this article. Posthuman does not necessarily refer to a conjectured future where humans are extinct or otherwise absent from the Earth. As with other species who speciate from one another, both humans and posthumans could continue to exist. However, the apocalyptic scenario appears to be a viewpoint shared among a minority of transhumanists such as Marvin Minsky and Hans Moravec, who could be considered misanthropes, at least in regards to humanity in its current state. Alternatively, Others such as Kevin Warwick argue for the likelihood that both humans and posthumans will continue to exist, but the latter will predominate in society over the former because of their abilities. Recently, scholars have begun to speculate that posthumanism provides an alternative analysis of apocalyptic cinema and fiction, often casting vampires, werewolves and even zombies as potential evolutions of the human form and being. Many science fiction authors, such as Greg Egan, H. G. Wells, Bruce Sterling, Frederick Pohl, Greg Bear, Charles Stross, Neil Asher, Ken MacLeod and authors of the Orion's Arm universe, have written works set in posthuman futures. Posthuman God equals, a variation on the posthuman theme is the notion of a posthuman God. The idea that posthumans, being no longer confined to the parameters of human nature, might grow physically and mentally so powerful as to appear possibly godlike by present-day human standards. This notion should not be interpreted as being related to the idea portrayed in some science fiction that a sufficiently advanced species may ascend to a higher plane of existence. Rather, it merely means that some post-human beings may become so exceedingly intelligent and technologically sophisticated that their behavior would not possibly be comprehensible to modern humans, purely by reason of their limited intelligence and imagination. See also, biohacking, biopunk, Kardashev scale, nanopunk, post-cyberpunk, technological singularity. References. External links, Nichols, Steve. The Posthuman Manifesto. Dixon, Dougal. Man After Man, An Anthropology of the Future. Pepperell, Robert. The Posthuman Condition, Consciousness Beyond the Brain. Rahmi, Sadek. Identities Without a Reference, Towards a Theory of Posthuman Identity, MC, A Journal of Media and Culture, Volume 3, No. 3, June 2000. Nikova, Eliana. Byrne, Chris. Designer Bodies, Towards the Posthuman Condition, Art Research Communication. French, Babin, Dominique. Penthouse 1. Manuel d'Essai d'entretien du posthumain. Flammarion, Bostrom, Nick. 2005, In Defense of Posthuman Dignity, Bioethics, Volume 19, No. 3, pages 202-214 doi, 10.1111 per Joule 1467-85 19.2005.00437x, Nalesnik, Daniel. Posthumanity, Changing Our Species. French, Serge Venturini. A permil clat da euro unregistered trademark un peu copyright du devenir posthumain, 2000-2007. A permil editions Le Matin, Col. A Potest des 5 continents à, Paris, 2007. ISBN 978-2-296-03301-6. 1. Elfnoy, Nader Nikolai Fedorov and the Dawn of the Posthuman in the Future Fire. Seidel, Asher. In Human Thoughts, Philosophical Explorations of Posthumanity. Review by Sela T.E., Ph.D. In Metapsychology, January 6, 2009. Hiller, James P. A Superluminal Transmission, Short Story. Ferrando, Francesca. Humans, Cyborgs, Posthumans, TED.